So yeah, I'm intrigued by your topic for this week. It's, wow,
Yeah, you see that?
I do.
Have you seen that yet?
No, what
Yeah,
is this?
this is some crazy statue that was just put up in New York. That
I'm
look,
not entirely sure how it's satanic. I
it's,
guess because it's got horns.
I mean, it sucks.
Not as bad as the MLK Jr. monument
Yeah,
thing.
and all these things are coming up at the same time because I guess artists. That's what I want to get into. Is artists just don't know how to make art. The statue of a woman sits atop this Manhattan courthouse. That's not a woman, man. That's like a. That's a.
No, he's not. This alien overlord, maybe.
Yeah, that's like a. That's a Warhammer chaos god, is what that is.
Abortion goddess on courthouse.
I'm not clicking that. Anyway, it is like
Demon
it
whore.
was dedicated to be like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and quote unquote her fight for like women's rights and abortion. So I mean, they're not wrong in
So,
saying that it's an abortion statue.
I mean, look at those arm things, tendrils. It looks like, man, it looks like the Invaders from Mars, the old like 50s Invaders from Mars movie.
Yeah.
That little head in the jar with the little tentacle arms.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. It doesn't look like settled. It doesn't look good at all. Like it just
No,
it's grossly
it's odd.
unsettling.
Yeah, it's odd.
Yeah. Give me a second. Just close the door when you go out, please.
Grossly unsettling, like our physiques.
Yeah. Even my arms are bigger than that.
For now.
Anyway, so I wanted to talk about basically how we got here to this because
Okay.
and really just go through it. And I get my notes down here at the bottom. So you know art. Not only are you like a fantastic artist, but like you just you studied art
Yeah.
and history and all that kind of stuff and
Hmm.
history in general. So the point is like how do we get here? And like where I've gotten with this is through dialectical inversion, and I'll go through all of that. I
Okay.
wanted to walk through note by note. But let's go through like what art, at least Western art, was at one point and the point of it. Uh,
Okay.
if I'm to understand my history, is that art usually was treated as a muse, like an external inspiration, usually to glorify some divine being.
Or at least a representation of beauty.
Yeah,
Whether it was a divine being or not. It was art is definitely at least historically a representation of what a culture sees as the ordeal or the ideal of beauty.
yeah, or noteworthy, or strength.
Yeah, and that varies, from culture to culture what that looks like. But yeah, essentially that I would agree it's the attempt to take the transcendent and make it tangible.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by divine being was whether you considered it
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
muse of a wind of the muse, or
yeah.
an Abrahamic god or a Babylonian god. Transcendent, I should have said. But I'll be a jerk and just say by divine. I guess I meant not necessarily holy, but not secular.
Right.
Okay, so that changed around the Enlightenment period. And
Hmm.
I'm not trying to go through an art history lesson for everybody, but it's an interesting subject, especially to explain how we went from like order, disorder, and we're going back to order, but it's an inverted order. So, or I get from inverted, I mean from if we, at least in the West, from a Abrahamic to a pagan or scientific,
Hmm.
scientism, not scientific. But anyway, so during the Enlightenment, a lot of what they considered cultural norms kind of got questioned with like the French Revolution and all that kind of stuff, and people kind of forget was it basically the reign of terror through all of that, and how there were actual churches put in place that were like churches to the goddess of wisdom or all that kind of stuff, or the goddess of science, essentially, like knowledge, goddess of knowledge. And they kind of saw this kind of stuff there for a while. Like you kind of saw this glorification of the strange and the kind of the raising up of socio-political ideas over divine ideas, mundane over transcendental. I mean, am I correct in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's accurate. I think that you also art's such an interesting thing because there's, and I know this is something we'll get into, is like the objectivity versus subjectivity of art, because it's this one thing that is it's so much both of those things. And when you think about the different periods of art, transitions that art has gone through, from where everything was so focused on realism, and and that shift from realism into surrealism, which is what this reminds me of more than anything else, is something that the type of things that Dali was painting. But then you also had impressionists that came up and said, let's just try to capture the feeling of something. And then you had the cubists and the abstract artists that came in and just wanted to completely dissect and bring chaos into all those forms. So, I mean, it's certainly true of some art. It can't be. It's not a statement on all art. But I think as a generalization, I can accept the premise of what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I want to get into. I mean, and what you described was mostly modernist stuff, like early 20th century, especially right after World War I and then eventually World War II, when basically people had seen the destruction of almost everything, and especially the rise of communism, the rise of, the eventual rise of fascism and all that kind of stuff. These big collectivist, materialist ideas.
Right.
And
but certainly from an ancient world point of view, very much so.
Yeah, especially and that's what was strange, is a lot of these quote unquote progressive ideas, which aren't progressive at all, we're fusing, especially in fascism, we're fusing with, or I shouldn't say fascism, maybe a little bit with fascism, but with Nazism, we're fusing with old kind of pagan beliefs and ideas. And they were bastardizing them, of course, because that's all they can do. But that's kind of what we're seeing here. This is like a mixture of scientism, postmodernism with paganism. Which is, and it's like, well, how do we get here? Like I've said, you mentioned objectivity versus subjectivity, and the best book, and it's not the only one, but it's probably the best I can think of to discuss that idea and those dangers of how to get from X to Y, is Lewis's Abolition of Man. And I'd like to do a book club on that if we could, because it's short. That's a good one to start with.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Yeah. That'd be a good book to read.
It's cheap for people to get. I think you can also get it online for free. Like you can download a PDF of it, I'm sure, because it's just lectures.
Yeah, it might be on like the Gutenberg Project or something. I'd have to look, but
I'm pretty sure it is
possible.
And
if not, I imagine it'd be like 99 cents on Kindle or something on Amazon. It wouldn't be much.
Yeah, but he warns of this idea of, once you get rid of objectivity as an idea, you can't really define much of anything, and then eventually you can't define humans in general.
Well, see, and that's where if you look at the art, it's just art is always a representation of where we are as humanity right now.
Yeah.
And at any given moment, where we are as people. And you bring up that idea of subjectivity and relativity. Like, we live in a society now that does not want to accept the possibility even of absolute truths.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this relativism of what's true for you is not true for me. we can have a completely separate set of truths, and that's not what truth is. And by the same token, they say, well, there's relativity in moral. What's morally correct for one is not morally correct for another, and ultimately, the art just reflects that same schism and that same, I guess, destructive imbalance. It comes out in the visuals that we create.
Yeah.
As a society.
Well, and like, not to get into the social political parts of this piece, if I have to call it that, because it's a piece of crap, is what it is. I mean, at least,
it's like, it's all right.
At least technically, the artist is talented. At least it's not a mumbo jumbo modern art piece of no direction and no order. So
it has the elements and principles of design are definitely at play and at work. You got a person who understands the craft.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's well crafted.
Yeah,
in that aspect.
The hair in particular. I mean, I'm trying to stillman it. The hair that is intricately cast. Like that is super impressive. It's
visually interesting.
Yeah, that's
visually
impressive.
Interesting.
It's just,
and I do like.
Yeah.
I prefer the the profile view.
Yeah, right here.
Because the hair ram horns, the profile is really interesting. Like graphically, it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but here's the thing. The reason I'm bringing it up is because it is a polarizing piece, because it's on a courthouse. That's a center of society in general, one of our most prominent cities ever. And I'm just going to start with, I'm trying not to gripe, but I mean, look at the two things here. Start with this. One of them is clearly a human being. The man here. You can't tell me this is a human being. I know it's supposed to be symbolic of something, of like some human spirit to do something. It's just, it's horrific of the human form.
Yeah, it's very alien, very fey seeming. If I had to, that's what it brings up to mind for me, is this sort of a fairy, and not in the sweet, cute way, but in the old fable way. The fae. If you went into the woods,
it's going to devour you.
Encountered the fae. Yeah, exactly. Well, it looks like a.
Well, that's the thing.
It's.
I'm not trying to get into the socio-political part of it, but because the artist brought that into it, or at least those are the reports around it. I mean, if you're going to make this about abortion and you're pro-abortion, why would you design it like something that looks like it's going to eat children in the woods? You know what I mean? It even has pan horns. And I'm not trying to say they thought that. As an artist, I vehemently love to argue. I hate the idea of the death of the artist argument. So I try to stillman the artist's interpretation and leave okay, well, if the artist said this, I will greatly consider that as the intention. But I mean,
it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to miss. The symbolism of those curls of hair being like ram's horns. I mean, that I don't think it's a stretch to say that was intentional.
Yeah, they're ram's horns, but I guess what I was saying is I was connecting the ram to Pan, which some might see as unfair, but I mean, Pan was literally the god. Correct me if I'm wrong on my theology here. Wasn't that the god that Jesus spoke against when he said, "This is upon this gate, or upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades will not crash against it"? Wasn't that place where they worshipped Pan and sacrificed their children?
I'm not sure. I do remember the scripture you're talking about, but I'm not sure if that was the the god of that in that particular city. I want to say, was that Ephesus?
Caesarea. It was Caesarea Philippi.
Caesarea Philippi. Yeah, Caesarea Philippi.
Now, like I said, I would love if I'm wrong, someone to correct me, but I'm pretty sure that is where they sacrifice children to Pan. Like, so all I'm saying is,
yeah.
yeah,
It was called the Grotto of Pan.
yeah, which is
In
what,
the 3rd century BC, fertility god of Pan, and that they called it the gates of hell
mm-hmm.
or of Hades. So yeah, you're correct.
Well, I'm not trying to,
'Cause
yeah,
there was a spring of water that came out of the cave
yeah,
that was kind of caustic.
yeah, and they, I'm 99% sure they sacrificed their children to Pan. So I guess what I'm saying is you're making weird connections here, and I don't like going down conspiracy theory routes without checking them out. I mean, I'll speculate all day, but it's like, man, if you're gonna make like an abortion statue, don't make it resemble even slightly a god that children were sacrificed to.
Well, see, and that's the interesting thing is, are those similarities intentional?
That's what I'm
Or
saying.
are those similarities things that keep coming up over centuries,
Yeah,
centuries of this of art, and the idea of inspiration? Is there a possibility that inspiration comes from outside of you and that it's not always from a positive space?
yeah,
And there's a reason why all these cultures spread out over hundreds and thousands of years use the same imagery and maybe don't even realize that they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
yeah. I mean, that's a whole other topic I'd love to get in when we can right now. I've got at least till 3:30 if you are. Yeah, I mean, it's weird that Rome and the United States use the eagle.
Yeah.
I think Babylon
it's
used the eagle too,
interesting.
didn't they?
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at how many ancient cultures had some form of serpent, and usually a winged serpent.
A winged serpent, yeah. And then they built temples to it, or they built pyramids to it.
Yeah, it's amazing how many cultures have that, and you have to wonder, especially like whether you're a believer or not, when you read the Bible, how the first story is of this thing, this serpent that speaks to someone and says, "Hey, you could be God."
Yeah, and then it's for some reason cursed to crawl on its belly, and it's like, well, what was it doing before? We're not told.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's not hard to assume. If you wanted to make that jump, I was like, well, either it had legs or it had wings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and quick promo here, that's a major theme in our universe. The Godfather universe is the recurring themes and cycles of humanity, particularly of the esoteric, particularly of the symbolic. Because, I mean, that's reality, but we take it to 11, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, we turn that up a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it's just so inescapable when we look at ancient civilizations. Why do they all build pyramids?
Mm-hmm.
Why do they all? And we keep finding more from civilizations that we didn't realize had them. They had pyramids too. Like, why would we make all these things that are so similar?
And why do they always line up with the stars?
Yeah, you could chase that rabbit way farther than we have time to.
Yeah, why is it always the entire pinnacle of their entire scientific, mathematical, and physics development as a society? Why is it all dedicated to that?
Yeah, and why, when a society reaches its zenith right before it devours itself, which always happens, right before these empires fall, you can look at the things that are celebrated, and at the whether they're idols or statues or whatever you want to call them, if you look at the art, how much of it looks so much the same.
It's usually a fertility goddess, and they usually sacrifice children.
I mean, it's
Look, I
And
don't.
that's the reality. That's not just making like rash generalizations, and we're not even making a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
We're just pointing
Yeah,
out
that's
like,
just a reality.
This is what we always end up at.
Yeah.
Like we develop to a certain point and we end up here. You ask, how do we end up here? It's happened so many times.
Well, I'm going to say this, like, just to clarify politically, like, I'm not getting into to the politics of abortion. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to judge this statue. I'm like, if you're claiming something that's basically like a pro-abortion argument, you shouldn't have framed it to even slightly resemble a god that had children sacrificed to it. Like,
that's what you're going for.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a whole argument unto itself. But I mean, yeah, I saw like Graham Hancock on Joe Rogan talking about he was so mad that like some priest or something, it was like some South American city had burned like all of their religious texts or something, and then he was like saying, "Oh, he was a zealot." Like, yeah, that dude probably was a zealot, but I mean, you don't know what those texts said. They may have been like, "Hey, here's how we sacrificed 200,000 children this week." Like, because
maybe we could do without that particular document.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't zealousness as in like, oh, no one can have this or whatever, but maybe it's like, hey, I'm so righteously disgusted by this that I'm gonna burn it. Because whatever, anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, continuing on with this. Yeah, it's just strange, and like I'm gonna like be a art douche here because we're both learned men. We both went to college, so let's use some of that douchery against it. Okay, what does this quote unquote symbolize? Because I was taught that when a statue of a woman didn't have arms, it meant the culture and the artists thought women were weak.
You think about like the Venus de Milo.
Yeah, and all the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was going to compare it to down here. And it's like, I know horns symbolize power in every single ancient text and every single poetic text ever. Horns symbolize power. So they're going for power here, but they don't have arms. So maybe it's like an intellectual or feminine prowess more so than a masculine power.
I'd love to know, because she doesn't have arms in a traditional sense.
Or legs, yeah.
But I'm not sure what the artist intends with those tendrils.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what the artist was going for there, because she's definitely not completely without arms, but what she does have is not a functional human arm. So yeah, I'm not sure what they're going for with that image.
Or feet, which were also a symbolism of a established power, if I'm correct, because the horns meant how you assume power, like how you get power, and feet were symbols of like how you hold that power. Which is, was it the vision of Ezekiel? Was it Ezekiel or Daniel that saw the bronze or the statue of the many different generations? Was that Daniel?
It was the king. It was the king of Babylon
who
saw it and had the dream. But
it was the book of Daniel
who interprets the dream.
Yeah, and as the statue goes down, it gets weaker. Like none of the, and then it eventually gets destroyed.
Clay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the feet are clay and they're destroyed by a rock, which would represent
God.
At least God. Christ. Yeah, so it's that idea of each successive empire represented by the segments of the statue.
Yeah, weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up for people who aren't used to it. Was it Nebuchadnezzar's dream?
Yeah.
I'm glad my autofill didn't show something weird. That would be hilarious on stream. Yeah, it was. It got weaker as it went down. So the head was, well, not weaker, but as far as the symbolism of the time, it was weaker because gold was considered the greatest at the time.
Right.
So maybe not weaker, but you know what I mean. In prestige and
less valuable. Yeah, less valuable.
Gold, silver, brass, iron, But that's also the double-edged sword of it, is like gold is prestigious and can, brilliant, and iron is stronger and vicious, and that's how like
Right.
the empires go. They get worse and worse and worse, and then you get iron and clay, and of course clay is unbelievably weak compared to the other ones, and that's the whole thing. Like the whole thing is that the footing isn't strong. It will not last, and
Right.
a stone will break it. A stone can't break iron. Anyway, but that's the thing we're seeing here too. It's just and it's coming out of a lotus, which is another weird. It's just a weird combination of symbols. Like the lotus is prominent in like Buddhism and Hinduism, if I'm correct,
Hmm.
and then you get like a pan's head. Like it's just, and in between you get modern neoliberalism. I think maybe that's also why it looks so weird. It's a hodgepodge of culture that doesn't match. And if I'm missing some great, because I believe the lotus represents life and vitality and all that, like the circular nature of life, if I'm being correct. And I could be way off on all this, and if I am, someone just correct me. I'm sure it represents multiple different things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it comes together in a very haphazard way, I guess. I would, I can definitely say that, like, as an art, just as a graphic image, I would say that I think it is kind of arresting. Like, it's not a statue that I could walk by without stopping to look at it, and I'll give it that, as it is intriguing.
I mean,
Um,
but if you saw like a shirtless Ron Jeremy, that would also stop you in your tracks.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm definitely not saying that that makes it good. But it does at least create
Yeah.
a reaction in me. Uh, but what it's supposed to, I think the biggest reason why I find it maybe not offensive but off-putting is because there is no clear message, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't trust a messenger that won't state their message.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and I think there's throwing on layers of symbolism to hide whatever or bury whatever message or communication was meant to be there. That just makes me less trusting of the artist and less trusting of the sculpture itself. So I think it's taking me this long today to get to that point, but like I'm looking at it and thinking, I don't know what they're trying to say. But I know that they're saying something, especially when you figure where they've placed it. It's got to be, there is a message intended, and either I'm not the intended audience, and so I don't know the right language to parse that message from the art, or there's a message that's not intended to be clear, and that that's an issue for me. I don't want a buried message because I don't trust buried messages.
Well, it's funny. I was laughing while you were talking because apparently, yeah, like the lotus is the symbol of like resurrection and
Hmm.
rebirth and this kind of stuff. And it's like you put it on an abortion statue.
Hmm.
I think that's the problem I wanted to get into. I think it's a mass juxtaposition of opposing views, and that's what's scary about it to me. Because I mean, it's called, the title of the piece is called Now, Now,
Hmm.
which is, no offense, pretty pretentious. I'm sorry to drop an F word there. It's just that slipped out because it's just so. I'm disgusted by it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really disgusted by it. Um, it's just, I think that title is apt though, sadly, because
Right. It
that's how
definitely
things
is
are.
representative.
Yeah,
It's
that's
representative of where we're at now, and the oh boy. All right, so as when you get in, I think it was in the book of Romans. Paul talks about this idea of that that society at that point had traded the truth for a lie. And you know, what was good was considered evil. What was evil was considered good. You celebrate the evil, you worship what's evil, and what's good you throw down, cast down. And when you look at our society right now, the overwhelming schism in our society right now is over who gets to say what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
What's true and what's false. And you know, this symbolizes the confusion that comes, at least, you know, this is me speaking from my opinion, so it's not worth anything. But to me, this symbolizes how much confusion occurs when absolute truth and a moral code are thrown out.
Yeah.
Everything morphs into this juxtaposition of crazy ideas, and you know, and then they put it on a pedestal.
Yeah, and I think that's the scariest part about it, is it, and I hate to use this term, but it's appropriating multiple different cultural ideas, which, I mean, that's what art's supposed to, that's what art does, that's fine. But
art consumes, and then
that's what
sends back out, and it transforms and repurposes.
Yeah, I am completely fine with that as an idea. What disturbs me about it is that it would take something like a religious symbol for life, resurrection, and rebirth, and make it about abortion. It's just it's a totalitarian image. It's taking sacred imagery and saying, no, it's about our culture, and not paying.
It's about now.
Yeah, it's not paying respect to it and working it and trying to stay with it, and it's not even doing a juxtaposition to try to strengthen the symbols. It is just taking them to say, this is what I want it to mean and say. Which, like I said, I try to give art the biggest grace ever, and I try not to judge artists. I try not to judge art based on the artist particular. I don't even know what this, but I think you can judge artists based on their art. I think you should be careful with that, because the nicest people in the world can make the most disturbing things, because that's how they deal with the horrors in them, you know?
Right.
And vice versa. Some people who made beautiful art were terrible people. So,
yeah. The terrible people.
Yeah, but I think that's why art is transcendental, and that's why art is important, is because it's so separate from the human until it comes out, and then maybe the whole point is that you realize a part of you didn't know before. Anyway, to go back to this, what's so weird, though, and going back to the history of art, is this isn't a postmodern piece. I wouldn't even call this a modern piece, and maybe I'm wrong, and someone can correct me, or they can also be wrong and try to correct me. It doesn't matter. That's why I've got you here, because you know the history of art. This seems like a religious piece. You know what I mean?
It certainly has. I don't know if the right word is the tone, but the position, the pose, the choice of, you know, that of even just the color of it. It definitely reads as a worshipful representation. Especially when you view it, like if you look at that the top left corner, that first image, if you click on that one. All right, so you're supposed to view it from this angle. Like the person live and in person is going to have to look up at. And I think, like, from this viewpoint, there's definitely a sense of majesty attributed to whatever this object is. It's meant to have a regal,
revered.
It's meant to it reads as divinity. Whatever that divinity is up to the artist, I guess, but it reads as divinity.
And going back to it, just to go for a second, because it keeps coming back to my head. Look at it compared to the other statues. Not only is it a different color, but it's also not human, and it's also the only female one. And it's like you had a chance to put a woman up there and you didn't. You put this, whatever this thing is that is assuming a feminine like shape.
Mm-hmm.
What does it say? What does it say about women, how we view them in our society? And I'm not trying to pull out a feminist code here, but I mean that's what they would ask.
Yeah. Well, and and there again is that question of are we trying to place a feminine being up here to stand alongside these men, or in making her so outlandishly different, does she, is she supposed to be above them by making her stand out so much? I don't know all of what they're hoping to accomplish. I know the artist is a female artist. She is Pakistani American. I don't know what that background brings to this visually.
Yeah, I try not to ascribe people's like life.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what I know that as an artist, it's hard to completely separate yourself from your art. So certainly, there's got to be some nuance that that's only she knows. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting choice, and I'm not sure it's one that I like.
Yeah, it's well, looking at this statue, like looking at this picture here with it beside him. I mean, I'd call me crazy or wrong, but I mean, it seems weird that a building like the city would leave that like that. And maybe there's more statues all around the building. I don't know. That's just how stupid and ignorant I am. But it seems to me like this could be the first of several to replace the ones that are already there. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Sure what the plan is.
Because right now it's an eyesore.
It is. But then the flip side of that is that some people would look at it and say that all the ones that are not like that would be eyesores in comparison.
Yeah.
So
I meant like the whole thing in general, like having that clash just in general is an eyesore.
It's very yeah, I agree.
Because they could have carved it in stone. They could have used the same. It would still be
the same.
It would still be an off color slightly because it would be newer. It wouldn't be as faded or, to quote Creed, weathered.
Don't quote Creed.
But all right, let's to go back to basically how we got here, and I'm going to go into my theory on some of this with modern art, or what I would call art now, and our world of dialectical inversion, which is, and this will lead us into a comic topic because we do make comic books, and some people who listen to this like comics. We do have 37 subscribers, which maybe someone listens to this, so that's nice. The best way.
By the way, if you haven't done it yet, like and subscribe.
Yeah, I need to keep saying and doing that. I just always forget. Because I'm used to being on other people's podcasts and I don't pimp their stuff. That's not my job. But anyway, the best way to describe for a comic fan, I think, of dialectical inversion is the trope of we're the same, you and I.
Yeah.
So, when Punisher in the show, when Punisher and Daredevil are arguing on the rooftop and Punisher makes the point, when I hit them, they stay down. That's the difference between us. Dialectical inversion is creating a dialectic by taking two different ideas and assuming, literally assuming an objective, overtop view of them to where they're equal but opposites. And that they're part of this, or maybe not even that, but they're part of like the same argument or the same idea. They're just different ways of going about it. And then the inversion part is where you make one better, usually the one that is less socially acceptable or morally acceptable, and you make it more morally acceptable. So you'd say, and people like, okay, well, the Punisher and Batman do the same thing, or Daredevil do the same thing. But when the Punisher does it, it's better because the Joker doesn't kill anymore. And I know those are two different universes. I'm just making it easy for people to understand. if he kills Kingpin, Kingpin can't hurt anybody anymore. Therefore, Punisher is actually better at this. That's dialectical inversion. It's to say, oh, we're both justice, and my justice is better. But the point is, like, no, they're both not justice. You just assumed they were justice so you could create a dialectic, which is opposing ideas, and then you inverted the entire idea to put your idea on top.
You're right, because in reality, one is, while you can look at them and say both of them are vigilantes, one of them is an insane person who kills because from out of his crazy ideologies and stuff, and the other one is actually trying to help people and does so in a courtroom and through using his powers for a good reason.
Yeah, one adheres to justice. He doesn't read.
Right. One. Yeah. There are established rules for one, and for whatever reason, society does. It's within human nature to reject authority, to reject any kind of establishment. And that's why I think we see so many of those inversions, like what you're talking about, is that people love to see a character that doesn't have to obey like they do.
Yeah, and there's a catharsis of that because a lot of times there is unjustified and wrong authority, and that's a whole other topic. Mm-hmm. But you'd have to prove it, and you can't prove it like this. So what you would say is, we're both vigilantes. And that's not enough. What you have to say is we both are doing justice. But my justice is better. But to get to that point, you have to redefine what justice is. And when you redefine it, it becomes nothing. That's the whole thing. It just becomes subjective. The objective is, it is how we as a society agree to govern these rules. As far as if you want like a really terrible materialist and secular view of justice, without including, deep human rights and all that kind of stuff anyway. I think people get the idea, but I'm going to push further, but this is how we got into a lot of the current problems in comic books is because, and I see this argument, a lot of people say comics have always been political. And it's like, that's not true. It's like Stan Lee making, or not, it wasn't even Stan Lee, it was Chris Claremont making a comparison of mutants with civil rights, one time or so in one run. What was that? Was that God Forgives, Man Killed? I forget the name of it. Really good run.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I think
God,
that's the way.
God Loves, Man Hates, something like that.
I think it was. I think it's the first one.
Yeah. Anyway,
God Loves, Man Kills.
But it's like that versus, a more modern comic, basically shoving current political issues, like let's say throwing in Barack Obama or Donald Trump or something, or what I'm saying, overt. One is political. The other one may have included politics as a storytelling point. But what you do to create a dialectic is you say, well, they're both political. But ours is intentionally political. Ours isn't getting people hurt. Ours is doing the right message, and now you've inverted it. Instead of it being comics with politics, it's no, everything's political. And if anybody's a fan of this, they would know that I discussed it with Stephen Crowley a little bit back, that the term everything is political or all art is political is a fascist statement. So go check out that clip if you haven't already. But you see, I know you understand what I'm saying. I'm just I want to make sure I'm getting it across because these are stupid words. These are big words, dialectical inversion, and it's all ideology and all kind of started with Hegel and all this kind of crap and Marxism. But that's how we got to art like this. Art was torn down for being about religion and being about order and being about beauty, and that's why we went through what we went through for several hundred years of it being more and more degraded, which I like some surrealism and that kind of stuff. But basically you get to the joke of modern art. There's no structure, there's no order, there's no beauty. In fact, some of it is aesthetic terrorism, which is another short video you can go check out because I called Velma Aesthetic Terrorism, which is literally art made to terrorize culture and tear it down. Okay, so we had that dialectic then of art, where maybe what is beauty basically?
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, art is this or this, and it's like, okay, well, it will invert what beauty is.
Mm-hmm.
And so beauty and politics and power are now, or politics and power are now beauty, not God, objectivity, and the divine.
Yeah, agenda is beauty.
So yeah, social problems and politics are now beauty, and that's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean to go through that whole thing, but I'm saying this is what we're going to be seeing now, because we're seeing it in every other art form. It's tear it down, get it to a postmodern kind of puddle, and then you erect a new standard, the inverted standard.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a dialectical inversion for everybody.
The same thing is happening with theology, and almost every ideology
philosophy.
is going through that same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, philosophy. It's all going through that same process.
That's what deconstructionism is. It's to get rid of all authority, get rid of all beauty and all standards, so you can then erect your own. It's supposed to be, it's the free people that we're all living our own truth. Well, people who say that you're living your own truth, that think truth is subjective, will end up worshiping a new truth objective that they control.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, but you're exactly correct, and that's why we're seeing so many. And I don't know how far to go into this, but you see so many pastors or teachers, preachers, whatever you want to call them, who are trying to say that all of us, regardless of religion, regardless of text, we all are saying the same thing.
That's Gnosticism.
Right? Right. Oh, we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah,
we're saying it in a different way.
It's all pieces and shards of the greater whole.
Right. And that's where we're at now, is that you got so many people that are saying this stuff that we might call him something else, but we're all worshiping the same God. Or, it's God is an idea.
Or God's in all of us.
Yeah, or God is you. You are God.
You is God.
You is God. You have this of God.
I'm sorry.
But that's where we're at, though. And so if anybody steps up and says, well, that's not quite correct, because there is, the God that is represented within this text has very specific character, very specific nature, specific expectations, and all of these things. Well, then they say, well, no, if that's the God you have, ours is better because ours is more inclusive and more amorphous.
Yeah, which is no God at all.
Exactly. It's the God of whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, if you can define a God based on your terms, it's not a God. And that's not to promote again, but we literally have Ox, one of our characters, say that in Apollyon 20XX, chapter 1 of Live Not by Lies, where she says, this can't be a God that these people are worshiping or creating because they control it.
Right.
Yeah.
But see, that's the difference. That, like you said, on the surface, Punisher, Daredevil, they look the same. But, that's the difference between a genuine faith and this new version of religions and spiritualism that we're seeing now, which is not really new, but, that's, it's new again, is the idea that you can say, well, we go from man created in God's image to God created in man's image.
Mm-hmm.
And those are not the same thing.
No, but again, going with that idea, and it's a subtle dialectical inversion again, but with that was an argument for the new atheist, and before them even some atheists before, which I'm not ripping atheists as a whole, I don't care, but it was the idea of God, or man-made God. It's like, okay, well, if man made God, why did God personify the best parts of man? Well, it's like, and their idea is, well, it doesn't matter, man made God. Well, it's like, well, if man made God, then the man can make Hitler as God, Nazism as God. It can make Stalin as God. Okay, see, that's what happens when man makes God.
Right.
And that's the thing, is like, well, that was the argument, though, because both of those sects, which is communism, fascism, and Nazism, all three of them, were materialist viewpoints. They were not religious, and their whole thing was that we can make God. It's like, well, there's that dialectic, and then you invert it to say, well, we'll make God better. And then when you do, you don't get Christ. You don't get the sacrificial God. You don't even get Odin, like, what, spearing himself to a tree to, like, learn wisdom and knowledge. You just get destruction and death and hell. So whenever you destroy that, and that's the whole thing, that's what deconstruction is in the religious community, and particularly in progressive Christianity, what you get is, and I'm going to repeat it because it's so, this is the truth, and this is what people need to see coming in everything, and I'm going to say even in sociopolitics, is when you have people that break down an ideal, I don't care what the ideal is, when you have people that break down an ideal, what they are going to do, they're not going to leave it amorphous, they're not going to leave it fun for everybody, they're not going to leave it inclusive. No matter who does it, they're going to erect their own standard, and then they're going to exclude people. And usually in history, what that means is death and destruction. You know, nothing ever stops here. It never breaks down for the sake of liberation and then stays there, which is going back to the French Revolution. That was the whole thing. It's all about liberation. In fact, wasn't that their cry, like liberata, however you say it? And that's not what happened.
It never is.
No, and it can't. Anyway, but all that to say, I didn't mean to interrupt you, dude. It's just
no, that's fine.
But no,
go
ahead. I'm sorry.
It's the same reason why. I think the reason why the American Revolution took a different path, than the French Revolution did, was like when it came. When the dust settled, George Washington wouldn't allow them to make a god of himself.
And they started from a different idea too. They started with all men are created equal, even though they didn't. Of course, not even necessarily. Of course, they didn't fulfill that in their lifetime. They still had slaves, but at least they started with this idea of that, and then this idea of a universal or at least objective good. Even if they all didn't believe in it, they at least said these rights have to come from God. We can't just build a nation state to take these rights, despite what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, and there's a whole argument where they were Freemasons and all this stuff. I don't care. Like, they had a good premise for a country. However it went or whatever happened and whatever evils they were clearly like still taking part of, or at least didn't know how to deal with, whichever way you want to argue that. I'm not going to argue that because I'm not a historian.
We can just say they were still human men.
Yeah. Well, that's for good or worse.
Yeah.
A lot of it is troped up in the idea of like the dialectical inversion of the let's say the intruder, like the inverter comes, which is we might actually steal that as an idea for a villain, the inverter. But to come in, the invertinator comes in, it's usually now a modern sense. It's usually your way of doing this is causing harm. And that's what it is. In the combination of what's known as critical analysis and critical thinking and negative thinking, which is the inverter usually comes in and all it can do is say negative things about the standard. And that's the whole point. It doesn't have to make a positive point. It just drives the other standard down and raises itself up. One might call it the accuser. If you wanted to be clever about it and connect to religion. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to get too much into this piece, man, but to me, it just personifies it. I'm not in it because it sets itself up beside what are clearly human states, and it shows that it comes from nature. It doesn't come from man. Like it's blossoming. It's blooming.
It definitely reads as it's leaving the tired old gray
Mm-hmm. Stone.
humanity behind.
It's leaving.
Yeah,
It's leaving
the
stone.
cold hard stone. Yeah, and it's leaving that behind, and it's doing that by killing children.
That's the weird part. I mean, you could even if you got rid of the horns, even and kept the arms and the feet, it would still be a classical representation of the feminine. In that the feminine is usually more chaos and potential. And why is the feminine usually considered potential? Because it can have children. So it's such a I can't wrap my mind around it, man. It's such a weird juxtaposition. I mean, I hate to say I would say it's blasphemous. I would say it's blasphemous to reality. You know, I'm not trying to go down a religion thing. It's just like there's nothing even about reality from a materialist or secular standpoint that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's just a very strange, I would say, pagan-esque piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And it's on display not in a gallery.
No.
But, on a government building.
Yeah, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a tool of government.
And see, that's the war we're fighting.
Yeah. Move over Moses and Zoroaster. Zoroaster, was that like that god that was considered, like they tried to say Jesus came from? Or is that a law? Or is that there's
Manhattan has a new female lawgiver.
Oh God.
With spaghetti arms.
Alright, I'm not going to attribute this to the artist. This is some crazy, terrible journalist writing. Oh, gosh. Are you Move over Moses, the founder of of basically all of society as almost the world entirely knows it, at least Western civilization. Oh, gosh. She is a fierce woman and a form of resistance in a space that has historically been dominated by patriarchal representation. Then why didn't you make her a woman then? Why'd you make her an alien?
Who was it? Was this written by a man?
It was by Dan Bilevsky. I don't know how to say it.
Jeez. A cuck.
At a time when women's reproductive rights were under siege. I'm not going there. I'm trying to leave that alone because that's a convoluted argument. Oh man, with Ginsburg death and reversal. Okay. Well, it is not the first time this court has changed the line of figures. In 1955, the court removed a turn-of-the-century 8-foot-tall marble statue of the Prophet Muhammad. Yeah, that was a terrible idea. Oh, okay. Yeah, apparently someone had the bright idea in 1955 to put a statue of Muhammad up there. Oh gosh. Okay, so was Muhammad removed for this?
No. I don't think so.
Whose work has been displayed and made her name, reimagining the art of the Indo-Parnesian minister. Was at pains to emphasize that Muhammad's removal of her installation were completely unrelated. My figure is not replacing anyone.
We're canceling anyone.
That Muhammad's removal and her installation were completely unrelated. Why would anyone think they were related?
Because of the Pakistani background, maybe?
But why would you judge somebody by their background? Now
because we're Americans, god dang it.
Now this I will judge by a feminist post-colonial perspective. How do you have a perspective of something that hasn't happened yet?
Imagination.
Oh, she made this too. This was called Witness. Oh, she made the same statue twice? Oh, that's lame. Or is it the same statue? They just renamed it and moved it?
I'm not sure.
The Now sculpture is in dialogue with another 8. No, it's two different ones. She made Witness. This one's 18 foot, and Now, which is the same freaking statue. All right,
I'm curious.
Sorry, now I am judging the artist.
Go down to that last paragraph. I want to see what that was saying. Powerful one by Sikander called Witness in adjacent Madison Square Park. To break the legal glass ceiling. Written on the sculpture is the word Hava, which she says means air or atmosphere in Urdu, and Eve in Arabic and Hebrew. It's such an odd mixture of... And there again, the message is so...
Yeah. It's about abortion, but it's named after Eve.
The mother of all humanity.
Womp womp. Okay, yeah, now I'm judging the artist. Oh, what? She's very talented, but what? This is some ridiculous modern year weirdness.
Now!
A magical hybrid plant animal.
No.
This is so weird. Yeah, this is so weird. Anyway, so I guess the question now is, I'm just gonna make a moral statement and be like, art like this kind of just sucks. Like, I mean, I don't think it's good. I think it's politically driven, which is usually how bad art starts. We've already been over all the contradictions. I mean, I'm just going to say it, like, even as a Christian and speak as a non-Christian, I don't know, I think it's in weird and bad taste to take so many religious elements, particularly at least two that symbolize life and the creation of life, and make it about abortion. Which, again, no matter what you think, I mean, whatever you think about abortion, you couldn't make an argument that Eve is a good representation for abortion. Maybe Lilith.
Yeah, I think it shows a person who either does not understand the symbols she's using,
or doesn't respect them,
or doesn't respect them, and either of those answers are equally disappointing.
Yeah, and then they put it on a courthouse.
Man, you know, how funny would it be if it fell and broke through the glass ceiling?
And then the headline was "Failing Upwards."
It falls through the glass ceiling and lands on a baby.
After being struck by lightning. Which I don't know what it's made out of, so I don't know if it's a conductor, but that's still hilarious. It also looks like
It can't be a conductor, Dan. That's a man's job.
It also strangely resembles the robot from Metropolis.
Yeah. Mixed with a Starbucks image.
Yeah, which is also kind of weird because that was the artifice of the female form sent to disrupt society. Like, yeah. That's what that was. So, yeah, it's like a whole lot of not good. I don't know what else to say. What I wanted to go with that is, man, how do you go back to, art being based off beauty? Like, I've been trying to figure that out and tell people. I mean, obviously, if you're religious of some sort, you have a standard. Like if you have a structure to go with. But what do you do, like, for the person who may or may not be religious and wants to create, beauty and art? Where do you think they start? And my idea is that, start with something look for something that transcends the world that you're in, whether in all the politics and all the like everything around you. Like, look for something. I hate to,
rise above this.
Yeah.
Rise above this garbage.
Look for something universal.
Find something that matters to you and means something. Not a garbled, jumbled mess of symbols that you're borrowing that you don't understand. Find something that means something to you and pour yourself into making it the best you can make it. And I promise somebody will feel the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody will share that human experience, and somebody's going to respond to that and see beauty in it.
But see, that requires that you believe there is a human nature. Which, like, you know, the more like left-leaning beliefs and far right-leaning beliefs of like socialism and basically a lot of those political people who are involved in politics tend to not think there's a human nature. Is what I'm trying to say.
And they're wrong.
Yeah, they're definitely clearly wrong. And I guess that's the thing is I would say, man, break out of that. The world isn't political. Humans made it that way.
Don't expect everybody to like it. You know, you can expect people to stand against it, and that's a sign that you're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't tick somebody off, if somebody's not pissed off by it, you probably aren't making art.
Yeah.
And I guess the same thing can be said about this. I mean, whatever.
If it doesn't have sharp edges in some way, it's not art. Like if it's boiled down drivel that's made to be slopped up, it's not art. The second part I would is like when you build something, you have to know what you're building with. And either this person didn't know what they were building with, or did and bastardized every part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. That's the other end of the spectrum. It's like not knowing what you're doing and then intentionally making propaganda. And I hate to use the term appropriating because it's been taken so much and used so much for stupidity, but I don't know. They bastardize sacred imagery, no matter what religion those images were. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's an interesting. I'm sure there'll be a ton of people talking about this, but it's usually surface level political crap or like surface level religious stuff. Like, you know, abortion got us on courthouse. I mean, maybe, but who knows? You know. I would say, yeah, but I'm not a huge fan of like giant, you know, clickbait stuff like that.
Making us gay. They're making the frogs gay.
So, I don't know, man. Beauty it's an interesting thing. We've been at war with beauty in our society for a long time now. It seems like. Because when something's beautiful, that's an objective standard, and we'll get into that in just a second. It forces you to look at your own ugliness.
Mm-hmm.
And we can call that jealousy or maybe even like existential jealousy. But I mean, it's the same thing. It's like if someone's smarter than you, you might feel inadequate. It creates inadequacies because it challenges you to be what you could be or more.
Well, and see, it's the same. It's the oldest story ever. I mean, it's Cain and Abel.
Mm-hmm.
It's
or God and
to
Satan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's that idea of God shows favor to one offering over the other, not and then immediately, instead of saying what was it that was missing in what I brought?
Yeah. How did I fail?
I need to kill and destroy the thing that makes me feel bad or that looks better than what I am, rather than look inward. You know, it's the fact that like faith is offensive.
Yeah.
To the unfaithful.
Yeah.
Beauty is offensive to, you know, the one that would rather, you know, just destroy the thing that it can't be instead of finding beauty itself. You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I hate to keep bringing it back, but I mean that's what this statue is. It's because it's I hate to say it but we know now that's what it is, because it's like a pro-abortion thing. It's kind of anti-woman, which is why it can't just be a woman. Like it can't.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's an artifice of a woman. It's a political artifice of a woman that has to have ram horns and has to be growing out of a lotus. It can't just be like this.
But see, that's the now. That is now. Is that what is a woman?
Yeah, exactly.
Anymore.
Well, who can answer? Who knows? What's a woman, Josh?
Yeah. I mean, that's at the heart of it is that there is no definition now.
Yeah.
According to
well, that's the thing with
this ideology.
With beauty, no woman will be offended by this because it's not the beautiful personification of the feminine. Because no one can be this, because that doesn't exist. This, I mean, look at this guy. This guy, I mean, he's kind of old or whatever, but I mean, this is a peak male form, at least for what that body could probably be. I mean, he's in great shape. He's like a philosopher king, whoever that's supposed to be. Like I said, I'm super ignorant. I don't know who that's supposed to be, but these men are standing upright. Like that's what you could be, and that's what justice is supposed to be. How is this just? Like, what is this? Like, yeah. And again, going back to beauty, because it's not beautiful, it can't, like, no woman can be this, so they're not offended by it.
Yeah. Even if they probably should be.
It's got certain assets that are nice. I was talking about the tangly arms. But yeah, I mean, that's
so useful for activities.
It's removed. I'm not trying to say this out of my mouth. I'm just saying, like, archetypically, it's removed what is the ultimateness of womanhood, which is being able to give life. Mm-hmm. And because it has done that, it can't even be a woman. It has to adopt. Mm-hmm. It has to adopt male features such as ram horns. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe some do female goats have horns?
Oh gosh.
Maybe they do. Do female goats have horns?
They're thinner and more spindly.
They do. Okay. Let's see them. Okay. Well then, I guess I'd still be. Look, I don't mind putting my ignorance on display. Do female rams have horns? I don't think so. Is that even a thing? No, because rams are the only males. So it has ram's horns, which means it is a masculine horn.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, because I was like, I don't think female ram is a thing when I was searching.
Because they curl backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, the curling shape is definitely ram's horns.
Yeah, that's like a female horn right there.
Yeah.
To some degree. Yeah, so it has ram's horns, and rams are male. That's what I was saying. Like, I was searching, like, female rams. That's not a thing. What am I looking for? Horned Justice Statue, New York. Just to bring it back up. So, yeah. You remove the feminine, which is the childbearingness, and you have to replace it with the masculine. That's what we're seeing. Yeah. And it's still not masculine compared to the guy beside it. Anyway. Yeah. I remember this one. This was on Wall Street. This horrific image. It's like, man, you should probably get that girl out of there. That looks very dangerous. Like, because it was supposed to be empowering. Like, dude, that just looks terrifying to me. Like, it looks like this poor girl is about to get trampled. Like, that just makes me nervous. I have a daughter. That makes me nervous.
I always thought it looked like she was about to whip out a Pokeball capture.
See, that would have been cooler. I don't know what that was supposed to be. Like, she may be fearless, but she's dumb. Like. Yeah. So there's a time and place for juxtaposition and inversion in art, wouldn't you say? Of course.
Oh yeah, of course.
But I think you already stated this.
At least make it respectful and understand it if you're going to do it.
You should understand and know and properly implement tropes and archetypes before you subvert them.
Yeah, and you need to have, there should be a clarity to the message. And that's where, again, if you're going to look at it from a spiritual, and especially if, for myself, I'm going to look at it from a Christian mind view, worldview. God is an author of clarity. God is not an author of confusion. So, if you want to say whether something is satanic or something like that, I'm not saying this is satanic, but, it is a satanic approach to create chaotic messaging.
Yeah.
To
well, no. That's what you just said is perfect. Chaotic messaging. That's a brilliant idea or term. Chaotic messaging, and I'm sure there's a better academic term for that because we dumb, but I wanted to I'm harping on that because that's a great phrase. Chaotic messaging. It's almost like a CIA disruption term.
Yeah, it's veiled and it's miscommunications and
occult,
poorly used patterns.
Literally the term occult, which is hidden, veiled.
It is a cult. That is exactly why I'm gonna find a piece of art like this off-putting. To me, this is far more, and there's people who love to look at things and call them satanic just because
it gives them a punching bag.
I saw a video the other day. Literally, I saw a video on TikTok the other day with this preacher guy, talking about how if you're a Christian, you shouldn't drink the heavy death, the sparkling waters,
dude.
Because they had a witchcraft video. It's like a sparkling water, but their artwork looks like the devil works, so you shouldn't drink it because you might be drinking demons. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But I got part of the body of Christ in me. I don't have to worry about that. But the point that I want to make is this: I find something like that statue we were looking at a lot more offensive, or evil. And I hate to throw that word around, but that's more off-putting to me on a spiritual level than a movie like The Exorcist would be. For all the people that might be like, oh my gosh, The Exorcist is so evil. It isn't, because the messaging is clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's clear.
And good wins.
Good wins. Evil is very clearly evil. So... which one is the more demonic or the more chaotic, satanic representation? The thing that says, hey, this is the devil, this is clearly the devil.
The devil is bad. Yeah.
Yeah, or the thing that's like this.
Yeah.
That says, hey, we should celebrate and bow down to this confusing mess that doesn't really communicate a straight idea, and probably wants you to give it its children.
Well, yeah, the only idea that is clear is basically don't question modern women perspective as we deem it to be. I mean, that's the clear thing, is that I hate to say it, it's anti-male. I think that's fair to say. I would say it's anti-woman. Clearly when you remove basically the life-giving nature of women, which I know doesn't define every woman, and there's plenty of women who can't give birth, and they're not less of a woman in the moral sense. The same way that a man who basically lost his testicles is no less of a man in a moral sense. You know what I mean?
I know.
In an ontological sense, whatever word I'm looking for is. And then you have to replace the feminine with masculine, and that's what these horns are. Undeniably, that's what the ram's horns are. So I wanted to share this. I just put thanks, I hate it. And this person said it's so out of place, so I created this. And it works strangely well, even at a really crappy angle. Like, it just looks like it's part of the chaos. And this is Slanesh from Warhammer. So, and then this person said, better.
Better.
And then my friend Spencer said, I think I fought this thing in Silent Hill once, and I said, fight it again. Which, if anyone's got a problem with Spencer, you guys can go fight him. He's a master jiu-jitsu artist. Have fun. Like,
But see, that's the thing. Is he's right? It does look better there.
yeah, it looks more in place here in this Chaos Demons horde, like as a totem to whatever this thing is. Because I mean, look at it; it looks like this figure, this anti,
That's crazy.
Yeah, this anti-feminine figure with male horns. Which the horns on Slanesh, the Chaos God, are more feminine than than on this thing. This thing looks more feminine than this does.
Golly.
At least Slanesh has nail polish on.
And them
Anyway,
quads.
yeah. Anyway, so if you haven't followed us on Twitter, go for it.
Wicked Twitter.
We have lost 34 followers in like 3 days, which is great because I'm assuming those are either bots or people that just don't like humor. Because I hadn't posted anything offensive on here. I try to avoid staying out of I mean, unless people think like the Snyderverse or whoever Sammy the Snyder Queen is offensive. But I mean, they like Snyderverse, so I'm down with that. I don't care. I don't know, there's too much drama in indie comics. I don't know. If you follow the wrong person, people get mad, but they'll get over it.
Or they won't, and it won't matter.
It's the internet. They're not real. Move over, Moses.
Twitter's not a real place.
Move over, Moses. This weird statue is here now. you know those books you wrote that defined civilization as we know it, and let down and set down the law as we know it still to this day. We've got this thing,
and it's better.
Yeah, look at it. This amorphous blob. Oh, let me see, man. If I got anything else, because like I'm trying to, I like just talking stuff out with you. We could do a little promo stuff. I mean, this is the kind of, if you guys like this kind of stuff, this is what we address in the Godfo universe. Like, and this is what we're going to keep addressing through our art, through our podcast and everything. This is what we're dedicating our life to, basically. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's just that idea, and we're definitely writing stories about characters that we find interesting. Like we hope that the comics we create are going to be fun to read. Like I hope that the artwork I'm creating, I know I'm excited about it, so I hope other people are excited about it. But ultimately, the narrative of this world is saying, hey, this stuff we're showing you right here, when we turn that up to 11 and really see what does this deconstruction of society and of will and intention
lead to?
Like what does it lead to? And it leads to an Armageddon.
Yeah, and we try to approach it from multiple standpoints. I mean, we're both Christians, but we try to approach it from multiple philosophies and react to those as a question and answer type, and not a belittling. Yeah. Now, I do mean I'll belittle communism, but
but in no way will you look at our book and say, "Oh, this is."
Yeah.
I mean, like this is Christian propaganda.
Yeah.
We're not. That's not at all.
That's not the.
That's
intent.
not even on the radar.
No, it's not the intent.
That's not at all the intent. It's not a Christian comic book. In fact, a lot of Christians will probably be very put off by it.
Which will be great. Like,
I hope so.
Yeah. This is the current cover. I think we discussed getting another one maybe, but we've had good reaction to it. I mean, Josh is an awesome artist, and but we love symbology and symbolism, which are two different things. We love philosophy to some extent, at least the ideas with it. I mean, a lot of philosophy is crap, and we love theology. So but the thing is, lots of people have themes Ryan Johnson has themes, but he can't deliver on them. Talk about chaotic messaging, that everything that guy makes. Well, there's a difference between being thought-provoking, which is asking a question, and chaotic messaging, which, man, you should coin that term. Like, I really like that term. That's like 1960s CIA terminology. Let me see if it exists. Cautious chaos communications. The application of chaos theory aimed to provide security in the transmission. Oh, that's like, I got you. That's something completely different. Using chaos to send secret messages. Everything's in all caps. Should I click on this?
Mixed messages cause chaos.
facweb1.redlands.edu. Well, it's an edu, so maybe it's not too bad. Andy Rudden. Oh, this is weird. Oh, this is math. Okay. Boring.
Math this.
This has actual academic merit, perhaps. Okay, cool, man. Yeah, we're gonna incorporate the idea of chaotic messaging as a theme in one of our stories. That's cool. Maybe in Witch Theory in Praxis.
Yeah, heck yeah.
It's like a bombardment for confusion and destabilization. That would be a great like FBI or CIA, not FBI, CIA idea. Chaotic messaging for destabilization. Anyway, so yeah, it's just been a while since Josh and I could have like a really long talk, but we haven't really done much selfish promo. But I'll say this is the kind of stuff we address, and we try to do it from multiple different levels and multiple. I mean, some of it's blatant. I mean, some stuff in reality is just too hard to pass up. Like,
yeah. Well, and I would say too, like, go to the Godfo Universe webpage.
Yeah, let's do that right now.
Read. Yeah, you need to check out the Lamentations if you haven't done that, because these guys, like, these stories are just these little clips and little tastes of what's to come. But like, just the way we dip into these esoteric ideas and into symbolism and into just the dangerous possibilities that this mindset can lead to.
Mm-hmm. And the multifaceted ways it can show up, because they can show up in the most hell-bent atheist and the most zealous of religious folk. That's the danger of these. That's the danger of ideology, and the danger of basically of assuming one is God or speaks for God.
Yeah, if you haven't been there, go check these out. Like, and get on our mailing list. We got so much stuff coming out.
You can do that
by subscribe to the YouTube page.
You can do that by going up here.
Just click on mailing list.
Yep, I'll put the links in the description, and now you just go to godfouniverse.com and you can get everything from there. There's a blog which we do the Road to Apollyon 20XX, which explains a lot of this kind of stuff, and that's still active and still going. And I think we have 4 entries right now, but we'll have more. And those are there's music, my band, and personal project, which Blue Bolt is a character in the Godfo universe, and the songs go along with particularly one era and more. Pentecost is another one, and anytime you see someone quote the poet in any of the eras, it's usually a song from one of these. So they're totally latched onto everything. You can go to news, you can watch our shorts here, subscribe to us on YouTube and all that stuff, but we're giving you more than any indie comic publisher is. Like, I will say that Gauntlet Throne, we're giving you more than we're giving you more than the big 2 are on their individual books. Like, and we're going to keep doing that. Yeah, so the Lamentations are 80 pages or more of really cool stuff, and then we've got, and it all flows as a story if you read it. I'm just skipping through it right now, but then you've got photos from our very talented friend Colin Finlayson, who is a wonderful photographer and a wonderful cinematographer who does all our short films as well, and you can expect more of those.
Yeah, we got some really cool stuff coming your way. So like, just join us on this ride. We want to interact with you. You know, we want to know how these things hit you. Um, Even if it means you really don't like our viewpoint, we want to hear that too. Like,
Yeah, we'd love to talk with you.
Yeah, we'd love to actually have a conversation. And Dan and I are both capable of having those conversations without them devolving into name calling and,
yeah,
and abuse.
We're not gonna yell and shout and dogpile. We're too old and we don't care enough about the internet to do that.
So yeah, like interact with us.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to get a Discord set up soon.
Mm-hmm. Several podcasts going, like, of different things.
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot coming. This is a big year for us. Mm-hmm. So definitely go ahead and get on board.
2 books coming out this year, and those aren't books as in like the guys on Indiegogo that'll sell you 36 pages for like $20. Like, no, we're giving like 200-page stuff for like as cheap as possible. And we're doing 2 of them. One is the length of 6 issues in one. That's a graphic novel. That is Apollyon 20XX. The other one is Biophile Kolga, which is like even bigger. It's 12 issues. And we wrote that one as if it were individual floppies that had been connected together, which is a really cool thing to read, I think. And let me pull up some of that real quick. Let me pull up some Kolga. You want to give a quick description of Kolga while I'm doing this?
All right. So Kolga is a person who was, as a young person, her father was involved in a group called the Biophile Initiative. This is a group that exists thousands of years after the Apollyon 20XX and all that stuff has happened. They live in a world where the false god has become a reality, and everyone just assumes that is God. The biophiles find out that there's rampant corruption, that there are lies beyond lies beyond lies, that there are people trying to control your mind, control the direction of the entire universe, and they decided that we got to leave. We're just going to leave this planet, and they will figure out how to do that. Kolga is left behind, and so she's very angry. And at the point that we meet her in Biophile Kolga, she's lived her entire life. She is an old woman who has fought these evil people, evil beings her entire life. She's seen all of the underbelly of this stuff, and she has just gone on what she thinks is going to be this final suicide mission. And instead of dying, somehow she is brought back to a basically to her youth again. She is given a young body again, and so she figures, well, if I've got a second chance, I'm gonna burn this whole thing to the ground. Mm-hmm. And it's fantasy, it's dark, it's sci-fi. It touches on all these genres we love so much. She's one of the coolest characters that I think we've ever created out of all of the different eras. Kolga is by far my favorite character to draw. There's a lot of the Japanese anime influence, but also it's kind of like a mixture. Art-wise, it's a mixture of anime and, to some degree, even like a Disney, mm-hmm. which I know sounds like an odd mixture, but I think it works well. Dan, what do you want to add to this conversation of what people can expect from Kolga, which I know that's a little further off, but we're still really excited about it.
Kolga it's an adventure story with Kolga and her ward June, at the same time being a slow burn character study of a woman who has reached the end of her life multiple times and mm-hmm. wondering what that means, what to do with that, going between extreme optimism and extreme nihilism at all times, and that things don't change. even if you get a second chance or multiple chances, the world and life don't change. So you have to reconcile with it eventually. And no matter if you lived for eternity, you'd still have to reconcile with it. And I say that, but 90% of it is swashbuckling, like pulling out a sickle and slamming it into a zombie's head.
Yeah.
Which is the good part.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and there's humor. It's probably our most humorous book at the same time, probably being darkest. At least it's a personal darkness more so than an existential darkness. Apollyon 20XX is more of a, because it's more. I mean, we go into the deep dive of the characters because each chapter is a point of view of each character, of one of them. But I feel like Kolga really, really delves into a person's soul.
Yeah.
And then it punches you in the face with a flaming zombie.
A very broken soul, a very tortured soul.
Now, it's not a deconstruction, and it's not a downer. That's the whole thing. You know, it's not some modern sad sack Tom King story about how Batman sucks. Like, Kolga is competent, and she's like a female Batman, basically.
Yeah, she knows what she's about.
Yeah, and can do what she needs to do, and I'm really proud because she's not a Mary Sue by any means. Like, all of her greatness comes from basically experience of failing at something a million times until you're good at it, and that's the whole thing. We wanted to create like a real person, so, and I wish I could show you some of the art, you guys. Josh, of course, is fantastic, and Josh's black and whites and Apollyon are great, but you should see like his kind of neon nuclear colors in Kolga, and they are really good. But yeah, the story itself, it's going to be long, like long form, like equivalent of 80 to 100 issues, and I mean, it's just going to be fun all the way through. There's a tournament arc, which we don't like using the term tournament arc, but I mean, it's what it is. It's literally what the story needed. So it wasn't like throw it in there because it's an anime joke. It's like, no, like this is what the story needs, you know. So I'm super excited about it. Our stuff, I'm telling you, man, our stuff, guys, is wide scope, man. We are giving you tons of story. This isn't some short little bite-sized thing that's going to come out. It's like, no, we want stories like the trades we picked up as kids.
Well, and the other side of it, too, is that, like, we're not giving you an issue now and then expecting you to wait 2 or 3 years for another issue. We're giving you a trade paperback now.
And then next year you get part 2 and part 3.
And know that whole story is already written.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the entire story of Kolga, beginning to end, it's already written. It's already there. We know exactly where that story's going.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to retcon it. We're not going to have to reboot it. We're not going to get halfway through and it never goes anywhere. It just drops off. No, we are going to finish this story one way or the other.
And we're artists, guys. We're not Kickstarter guys. We already have a publisher. We are probably going to crowdfund Apollyon just because IGG and Kickstarter are places, they're like social media unto themselves. But we're paying for this, and our publisher's paying for it. It will be done before you order it. All of our books are completed before you order it. If that pisses people off, or if that pisses off Kickstarter or IGG, I don't care. Like, that's the standard. The guys at Iconic and other people have set that standard. Books are done before people buy them. I've only bought one indie book. I'm gonna go on record and say that I bought one indie book, and I was so disappointed because it took like 8 months to just get done. I wanted my money back before it even came in, and when it got here, I didn't want to read it. Now, I've bought stuff from Iconic from their site, which I guess is an indie book. I guess what I'm saying is I haven't backed but one Kickstarter. Yeah. And I regret backing it. I wish I had my $30 back. I could have bought something doper. So we're not going to do that to you guys.
No. absolutely
That's
not.
That's not how you do business. That's a pathetic way to do business. I don't care that there's guys that are like millionaires that are part of like big movements that sell big stuff doing that way. It's like, I'm sorry, if you don't have a job, why aren't you finishing this stuff and then getting it to people as quickly as possible completed? Don't fund 6 projects and then get it done. Finish one, get the second one, get the third one, pay out of pocket. That's how business works. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you're not taking a risk, it's not business, man. It's not cool. It's not punk rock. So someone can push back on me and be like, "Well, I'm sure that's great. Pros and cons, great." I don't care. I really don't care, because all the arguments are for artists. I care about the customer, and I'm a writer.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't get to say that, but I have an artist. I have the best artist in the business, Josh Adams, and he'll back me up on this.
Exactly.
So that's how we do business. We do business by us taking the risk. We have fought our publisher, full transparency. We fought our publisher over that. I'm not going to name names and I'm not going to give details because I've already done that. But we fight tooth and nail for our customers. Because
and always will.
Yeah, customers are someone you should respect. People are like, don't say customers, say backers. Like, no. Like, they're customers, and customer is a good term. A customer is someone you serve. You guys make our jobs possible, so we serve you. You have the power here. If you don't give us cash, I mean, we'll just keep making it in the dark, but it'll suck. Because I'm going to make it regardless, because that's what artists do.
Nah, he's right. And what we want is to bring joy and entertainment and hopefully,
inspiration and love.
Inspiration into your life. Yeah, love
and
into
beauty.
Your life from us. And, we take very seriously being beholden to you to give you our best.
Mm-hmm.
And if, it's trust. It's a relationship. It's trust. And if you trust us, we will deliver.
Well, when you care about someone,
always deliver.
When you care about someone, you serve them.
Yeah.
Because here's this thing, and I've just now recently heard the term, and that's how they describe like IGG and like webcomics and stuff. People are like, oh, they're kingmaker platforms. Like that's how like people can make you like a king. Like that's how you get money and promotions and crowd. And like, what a like sadistic way to look at these things. And I know these people that said it didn't mean it that way. That's just the term they use. It's like, you don't make customers don't make us a king. They just buy our product, which means we serve them. And if
it's not like we have rulership in your life.
Yeah, I serve you. I mean, literally Patreon, like a patron is someone who pays for you, who like takes care of you. You owe them. Like I'm gonna make
content.
this art. Yeah, I'm gonna make this art regardless because I'm an artist, but I owe the customer the very best.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So join us on this journey, guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be huge. Like I mean, I don't have the timeline pulled up, but I mean this thing goes from Apollyon 20XX all the way to a novel that's already done, and that novel is gonna be like 6 novels, and that's like 5 millennia in length, and we have these eras already laid out. And guess what? We can make more because we know our universe and we know our magic system so well because we spent 10 years on it. I can come up with a story like that, and if it's good, I can make it, and then Josh can do it. We have decades of stories, and that ranges from comics to novels, to free content, like esoteric stuff, cool stuff, music, short films, everything. What people like think about, like the people who are in indie comics think like, oh, I'll make a animated trailer for my comic. No, why don't you make something cooler? Like, why don't you? I'm just saying.
Yeah, we're making a game.
Yeah, I'm literally building
far along a game.
Yeah, a bullet hell, a puzzle bullet hell. That is unbelievably cool, and we're making a card game to go with it. And here's the thing, Josh, have we started on the card game? No, but you know what? We have the idea and the will to do it. And you know what? How many card games do you play and board games do you play, Josh?
A lot.
Yeah, we're gonna make
A
we're gonna make
lot.
something cool,
A
we're gonna
lot.
make something cool, and it's gonna be done, and it's gonna be paid for before you guys buy it.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's so hard. I can't believe I'm going on a rant, and I'm sorry. And I interview like artists and creators that I respect, but there's so many I don't, man. And I'm not trying to miss something. It's just like so many people are just riding this gravy train, or trying to, or just giving up and failing and just quitting. And it's just like, man, you guys are in this zeitgeist, like this brain fog that you think it's got to be a certain way. It's like, no, be as punk rock as possible. That's how you like.
Exactly.
That's how you do it.
Exactly. And just to bring all of that stuff back around to the topic of this video, transparency,
Mm-hmm.
clear messaging. Clear messaging. Like, we don't want to send any mixed signals. Like, you're gonna know where our worldview is. You're gonna know, what our characters, they're gonna pretty well wear that their truth or the truth on their sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not trying to sneak an agenda in.
Yeah, and
We're not trying to confuse anybody.
and there's conflicting worldviews within characters, because that's how reality is.
Yeah, that's the way the world is.
Mm-hmm. So anyway,
That's what creates tension, which is where plot comes from.
yeah, that's how storytelling is. But anyway, we gotta cut it here because my baby's waking up, and I gotta go. But anyway, we hope you guys enjoy this. We're gonna be doing more like longer ones like this, and we'll let you know when Apollyon is coming out. It's coming out this spring. We'll get an exact date. Sign up for our mailing list. You'll know everything. And go ahead and check out the Lamentations if you haven't, and just expect cool stuff from us.
Yep.
All right, peace.